Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Ari Hirschberg, Community Practice Lead at the Exchange Lab. This month I'm talking with CJ Ritchie, Associate Deputy Minister and Government Chief Information Officer. Today's conversation is on women leaders in tech. I think CJ has a wonderful way of being able to share some of the great work in tech inside the BC government in a way that it makes it easy to understand and shows the importance of the work to people inside and outside of government. She has a way of turning technical projects into human stories that stick with you for a long time. I've been looking forward to sitting with and hearing her thoughts on women leadership in tech. So, welcome, CJ. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So, what was your path to getting into digital government?
Long and winding. I didn't start my career in the public service thinking, I want to be a digital government evangelist, or I want to be a leader in IMIT. In fact, I didn't think about IMIT at all. I started in government because I was living in a small town in Port Alberni, actually, in Vancouver Island. I'd just finished university. I had a psychology degree. And what can you do with a psychology degree? Almost nothing. Sorry for all the psychologists who might be listening. And so, at the time there was an ad in the paper, because I'm that old, that you used to get jobs by looking at classifieds in the paper, for a child protection social worker. Having no real understanding of what a child protection social worker did or the role that you were undertaking, but having an interest in children and growing up in a large family, I thought, that's maybe something I could do. So went for the interview and got the job. I was 23 at the time, and became a child protection social worker with delegated authority to remove people's children right out of university. And stayed in child protection, doing child protection investigations for 6 years. I think around that time in the mid-90s, the average time on the front line was about 18 months. So 6 years was well beyond the expiry date. So stayed in the field, worked in Port Alberni, transferred to Victoria, did some work here, and then went to MCFD headquarters. From there, I worked in probably every business unit MCFD had, as a project manager, policy analyst, manager, all the things. And then left government for a while and went out to a consulting firm. At the time, the consulting world was chasing the integrated case management opportunity. And so having somebody who had frontline child protection experience, somebody who knew all the business units of MCFD when it was an MCFD opportunity, was a valuable thing, because they were contemplating, who are they going to partner with for a software company to bid on this opportunity. So I was headhunted out of government to go to that opportunity. But procurements being what they are in government, it took a long time. So in the intervening year and a half that I was with Bearing Point, there was a lot of other global pursuits that they were undertaking, whether it was pan-Canadian health surveillance or the P-list system. And so, I left MCFD and went to Bearing Point, and really the skills that I had developed at MCFD led well for things like stakeholder relations and stakeholder management. And I was a project manager, so bid pursuit could be project managed. And so over the course of that year and a half, got experience on these large IT procurement projects. In government, you get to experience one of those every decade. In the private sector, I did like 7 of them in the first 8 months. So combined with the project management and child protection and people development skills that I had from MCFD, now in the consulting world, and having exposure to IMIT projects of all sizes, shapes, and kinds. When the integrated case management really started to get underway, I had the opportunity to come back into government on the procurement team for integrated case management, and I did. And it was the perfect marriage of what was new, IMIT, and child protection and what I knew about the social sector in general. After that, it became one IT project, led to the next IT project, led to the Future of Work initiative at the Premier's office. So it was just a series of stepping stones. I was never consciously thinking of where I wanted to go in terms of content in government, I always just looked for the next interesting opportunity and leaned in and did whatever I could in my scope and do it as well as I could. And the next opportunity always came. And so I just chased interesting work. It just so happened that the majority of that interesting work and what I found the most compelling was under the banner of IMIT, and began to be more about improving the services of government in general, improving the citizens' experience in general, and less about specific to the social sector over time. And so that's the story of how a child protection social worker becomes the government CIO in an unplanned but very interesting and compelling way.
I like that you said interesting work a lot, because it's so easy to get caught in going just to move up instead of going for something that gets you going.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I wasn't ambitious. I was. And as a young public servant who always wanted to do more, and I was interested in having, more scope and more responsibility and more impact. And so, yes, there was a thread of ambition, but really it was about what was the next interesting thing I could contribute. And it was what started out as a series of projects became bigger and bigger initiatives. And not surprisingly, given where we were on the timeline of government, involved technology more and more. And, if you look around government now, can you even find a line of business anywhere that doesn't involve technology, that doesn't have a tool or a website or a database or a something? It used to be in government that it was IT was one segment of government, and there was the technology people. And then there were the business people. Now the business people are the technology people, and the technology people are the business people. It's all the business. There is no IT or the business. It's all the business. And, I doubt there's any major company, any major sector that, we used to say when I was writing the tech strategy that every company was a tech company. Somewhat true, right? You can't find a forestry company that doesn't have tech. You can't find a clothing distribution center that doesn't have tech. Is Lululemon not a tech company? I think they are. I order something on a Thursday night, Friday morning, it's at my door. There's tech involved.
And it's so easy.
And so I think, overall, what we want to begin to give citizens is that same experience, that their experiences in the private sector at Home Depot and Indigo and Lululemon isn't different than what they get inside a government. It should all look the same.
Yeah, because that's what we expect.
That's what we expect.
So what do you see as key traits in yourself that helps you be effective as a leader in digital government?
Well, if I think about public service values, I would say certainly the two that I think I probably have the most of would be creativity and courage. This is hard work. And we have a tendency government is a risk-adverse place, generally speaking. And we have a lot of process and systems and people that protect that risk tolerance. And so there's always 150 people that can say no. And so I used to say, in order to innovate in government, you had to be able to survive the room-by-room knife fight. And in the early days of doing this work, it did feel like that. It felt like you were trying to market and convince and cajole and bring people along. It's better, but it's still, we don't have a system that's set up to support innovation. We have a system that's set up to quell innovation in some ways. And so, I think having courage and having creativity to think about how we might do things differently and how we might apply a really different lens to the work has really served me well. It hasn't always been easy, but those two traits, I would say, combined, have been really helpful in thinking forward about the future path for government services.
Yeah, and so like the courage to make mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, you never want to be the person in government that makes a colossal mistake. But I think, intelligent risks and sometimes using the lens of likelihood. So we have a tendency, I think, to want to manage risk to zero. And there is a cost to managing risk to zero. And so sometimes using the lens of likelihood, how likely is it that this thing we're trying to protect ourselves from will come to fruition? And sometimes just using the lens of likelihood will give you enough courage to move forward.
So what do you think are key elements or traits on being good at tech?
You know, I've been asked this question a lot and in different ways, Ari. Sometimes it's more about, getting women and girls into tech, or, what are the key elements of being successful in the world of IMIT. And, I sit as a leader in IMIT for public sector, and I'm not a technologist. I don't code. I can't do a security threat and risk assessment. I couldn't do a PIA. I'm not a developer. But I think the role that we play largely in IMIT, particularly now, is around making the services of government and the processes of government accessible and convenient and easy. And so I'm not sure you need to be, while you need technologists in the development of products, you don't necessarily need technologists to be thinking about the future-facing strategy of where we want to go for government services. And so I think while technologists play a role, anybody can be in tech. It is so encompassing now that, it's less about the piece of tech or the tool that you're building to serve a need, and more about thinking through how we can meet citizens where they are, whether they're on their couch at 11 o'clock at night, how we can structure our services so they're accessible and easy to find, and that they wrapper around the citizen. A citizen shouldn't have to know that it's this unit of this branch, of this division, of this ministry, and go 50 clicks into a website built for a different purpose to find the service they need. And so you don't need to be a technologist to do that. You need to be a person to do that. And your life experiences as a parent, as a mother, as a student, as a bill payer, those are the experiences that can help us determine how we best meet citizens' needs and meet them where they are. And so that's not the experience of technology. That's the experience of being human. And that's what we need now.
Thanks. What are a few areas you are proud of that we are doing well in digital government?
Well, certainly the people aspects, I think we're doing well. I mean, if you look at any area where we've seen success, whether it's our response to COVID or the products that are built in the lab, or the examples that we use of digital government all the time, the Digital Minds project, for example. When you really sort of winnow down to the essence of why that was successful, it's the people. It's this network of people that we tap into over and over and over, and we're proving in that model that it's not so that the framework of government says that there is technology people in an IMB, there's policy people in a policy shop, there's finance people, there's business people. And really what we've done in most of those successful scenarios is taken a multidisciplinary approach where we have this network of individuals that come together from a tech, policy, finance perspective and work together around a collective problem. And I think if you look at all of the successful examples of digital government, you will find that element.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've been part of the lab operations for 3 years now. The cultures of the team, it's so neat to see them really connect and grow and just have fun while they're building stuff that's important.
I had one of the federal CIOs come through the lab. I mean, Ari, we've had lots of people tour through there. And his comment to me was, CJ, I've been in labs all over the world. I have never seen a lab like this one. That lab has a different feel. It doesn't feel like you're in a business unit of government. It doesn't feel like you're in a branch of a division, of a unit, of a ministry. It feels like you're in a tech company. And it feels like a place where people come together to learn and to problem solve and to wrapper themselves around a challenge that government has and think through how we do it differently. Not from a what are the rules that we have to follow perspective, but from a citizen user experience, how can we make this easy and elegant and useful perspective? And maybe that's what we need to do more of.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed seeing the teams grow and be a part of that. So what areas would you like to see us do better, and what is getting in that way?
So I think part of it is culture. So we have such a culture of, not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to try something new, not wanting to do something that we've never done before. So a lot of the answers you will get in the hallways of no are things like, well, we've never done it that way. We can't do it like that. That's not what the policy says. But I think we're coming to a time where all of that perhaps needs to be examined through a lens of, from a demographic perspective, we don't have the luxury of having 32,000 public servants into the future, probably. If you look at it from a technology perspective, some of the framework of government and the ways in which we've set up systems were based on a time that doesn't exist anymore. The ways in which people use their technology and use their devices has changed. The problems we're trying to solve have changed. Ministries are set up to all be their own entities, their own kingdoms. And there was a time when they had their own information and their own data and their own systems. And largely, the problems we're trying to solve in government now don't reside in the jurisdiction of any one ministry. The problems we're trying to solve, like climate change, homelessness, mental health, cut across ministries. And so having multidisciplinary teams and multidisciplinary approaches and a different framework that supports work across government, that's what we need now. To solve those problems, that's what we need.
So I have one more question for you. I think you'll appreciate this. Are you familiar with mean tweets on Jimmy Kimmel, where a celebrity reads a mean tweet on camera?
Yeah, I am.
So I recently read that the Gates Foundation wanted to create psychological safety for their work team. There was a fear from experts on the team to share their points of view at a meeting because they were worried about looking bad in front of Melinda and Bill. So Melinda challenged the entire executive leadership team to take the hot seat to sit in front of a video camera and read a criticism. I was impressed with this and how it improved the psychological safety for the organization. Would you be interested in sitting on that hot seat?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. This is the first time I've wanted to try this. Can you share criticism you have heard from current or past teams or colleagues?
Sure. Okay, so I'm not, for people who know me, you would know that I'm not a particularly effusive person. So you're not likely to start a meeting with warm hugs from me. I'm not particularly emotive. And I'm fairly business and output oriented. And so I like to get things done. So often I have to really remind myself to slow down. Like I've been known to go into meetings and like forget to introduce myself and my team and like launch straight into the business. And so one of the criticisms you will hear is things like CJ's aloof, CJ's cold, CJ's not a people person, whatever. It's not that I don't have emotions. I just don't, they're not outward facing necessarily. And so I think for people who have the opportunity to work with me closely, they realize that I am personable and, authentic, and I'm nice to people. But I think that in a business setting, if you just see sort of the business side and you don't have a particular channel to interact with me on a more personal basis, the feeling you may be left with is that I'm particularly aloof and maybe scary. But I think for people who have worked with me more closely, they would tell you otherwise.
Thank you. Any final thoughts or any comments?
I think this is a particularly interesting forum, I think, to use in the public service. Podcast isn't something that we've done a lot of. So really congratulate you for trying something new and disseminating information in a way that's modern and that people want to receive it. And just thanks for the opportunity to come chat.
Thanks again, CJ, for taking time to share your thoughts. That was a really interesting discussion. Email me at ari.hirschberg@gov.bc.ca. I would love to hear your feedback, comments, and suggestions. Thanks for listening.